The outpost commander stood at the viewport, watching distant stars flicker through the atmospheric haze of Frontier Station 12. Behind him, 3 senior officers exchanged nervous glances. "You're certain about this assignment?" asked Lieutenant Morris, his voice barely above a whisper. Commander Hayes turned from the window, his weathered face betraying no emotion. "The decision's been made. James Cole will serve as diplomatic liaison to the Vakarine Empire." "Sir, with respect, that's a death sentence," Morris protested. "The Vakarine have killed every human envoy we've sent in the past decade. And their war leader, Raven, I'm aware of her reputation," Hayes interrupted. He pulled up a holographic display showing a towering figure clad in black armor, her features sharp and predatory. Raven the Merciless. Conquered 17 star systems. Responsible for the annihilation of 3 species. "Yes, I know exactly who she is." The room fell silent until another officer spoke. "Then why Cole?" "He's just a civilian contractor. A linguist." Hayes allowed himself a thin smile. "Sometimes the right tool isn't a weapon. Sometimes it's words." 3 weeks later, James Cole materialized aboard the Vakarine command vessel through a transport beam that left his stomach churning. The receiving bay was enormous, built to accommodate beings far larger than humans. Everything about the ship screamed martial efficiency. Dark metals, harsh lighting, and the ever-present hum of weapon systems. A squad of Vakarine soldiers surrounded him immediately. Each stood over 7 feet tall, their muscular frames covered in segmented armor that seemed to shift colors with their movements. They escorted him through winding corridors until he reached a vast throne room. She sat at the far end, elevated on a platform of polished obsidian. Raven was even more imposing in person than her holographic image suggested. Her armor bore the scars of countless battles, and her eyes a striking amber color fixed on him with an intensity that made his heart race. "The human speaks our language?" Her voice resonated through the chamber. Each word carefully enunciated. James stepped forward, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "I do, our leader. I've studied Vakarine linguistics for 8 years." A ripple of surprise moved through the assembled warriors. Raven leaned forward, her expression shifting from contempt to curiosity. 8 years, she repeated. "Most humans cannot wrap their primitive tongues around our speech patterns. Yet you claim fluency?" "I claim competence," James corrected gently. "Fluency would require a lifetime." Laughter erupted from several warriors, but Raven silenced them with a raised hand. She rose from her throne, descending the steps with predatory grace. As she approached, James forced himself to stand his ground despite every instinct screaming at him to flee. "You are either very brave or very foolish." "Human," she said, circling him like a hunter examining prey. "Which is it?" "Perhaps both," James admitted. "I was told you execute diplomats on sight. Yet here I stand. I execute those who waste my time with empty platitudes and weak bargaining," Raven said. "Those who come bearing their government's lies like shields." She stopped directly in front of him, towering over his smaller frame. "Will you waste my time, James Cole?" He met her gaze without flinching. "I hope not. I came to understand, not to negotiate." Something flickered across her face, an emotion he couldn't quite identify. "Understand what?" "Why you fight. What drives the Vakarine to expand across the stars? Your people didn't emerge from nothing, war leader. Every species has a story." For a long moment, silence dominated the throne room. Then Raven gestured dismissively to her soldiers. "Leave us." The warriors hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the order. One stepped forward. "War leader, protocol requires." "I am protocol," Raven snapped. "Go." They departed reluctantly, leaving James alone with the galaxy's most feared military commander. She returned to her throne, but didn't sit. Instead, she stood beside it, one hand resting on the dark stone. "Our story," she began, her voice softer now, "is one of survival. My people evolved on a harsh world where every day brought new threats. We learned to fight before we learned to build. We conquered our own planet's apex predators before we mastered fire." She paused, her amber eyes distant. "When we finally reached the stars, we found the galaxy was no different from our homeworld. Kill or be killed. Dominate or be dominated." James listened carefully, noting the subtle shifts in her tone. "But you've already proven your strength. The Vakarine could choose a different path now. Could we?" Raven's laugh was bitter. "Show weakness in this galaxy, and 1,000 enemies will descend upon you. We've seen it happen to others. Peaceful species ground to dust beneath the boots of those willing to do violence." "Not all species," James countered. "Humanity has survived without conquering 17 star systems." "Humanity teeters on the edge of extinction," Raven shot back. "Your species holds on to a few scattered colonies, always one war away from annihilation. Is that truly survival?" "It's life," James said quietly. "We build, we create, we love. Yes, we defend ourselves when necessary, but we don't define ourselves by conquest." Raven studied him for a long time. "You speak strangely for a diplomat. Where are your demands? Your treaties? Your desperate pleas for mercy?" "I'm not here to demand anything," James said. "I'm here because I believe you're more than what the galaxy sees. More than just a weapon." The war leader's expression hardened. "You know nothing about me." "Then teach me," James challenged. "If I'm wrong, you can always execute me later." Another long silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, Raven laughed a genuine sound that transformed her severe features into something almost beautiful. "You are either the bravest fool I've ever met, or the most foolish brave man," she said. "Very well, James Cole. You wish to understand? Then you will stay aboard this vessel as my guest. We shall see if your curiosity survives reality." Over the following weeks, James became a strange fixture on the Vakarine command ship. Raven allowed him unprecedented access, permitting him to observe training exercises, sit in on strategy sessions, and even join her for meals in her private chambers. He learned that beneath the armor and reputation, Raven carried the weight of an entire species on her shoulders. Every decision, every conquest was calculated to ensure Vakarine survival in a hostile galaxy. She showed him records of their encounters with other species betrayals, unprovoked attacks, diplomatic failures that ended in bloodshed. "You see," she said one evening as they reviewed historical data, "we didn't choose this path out of cruelty. We chose it because every alternative led to extinction." James absorbed the information, his respect for her growing despite the violence she represented. "I understand now. But understanding doesn't mean accepting that this is the only way forward." "Then what would you suggest, wise human?" There was no mockery in her tone now, only genuine curiosity. "An alliance," James said, "not built on fear or dominance, but on mutual benefit. Humanity needs protection. The Vakarine need resources and allies who won't betray them. We could provide both." Raven considered this, her expression thoughtful. "Your government would never agree to subordinate themselves to Vakarine authority." "Not subordination," James corrected. "Partnership. Equal footing." "There is no such thing as equal footing in war, James." "Then perhaps it's time to stop being at war." The words hung in the air between them. Raven stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. James joined her, standing close enough to feel the heat radiating from her armored form. "You've changed something," Raven said softly. "Since you arrived, I find myself questioning decisions that once seemed absolute. You've planted seeds of doubt where there was only certainty." "Is doubt so terrible?" James asked She turned to face him, and he was struck by the vulnerability in her expression. For someone like me, doubt is dangerous. A war leader cannot hesitate. A war leader, perhaps, James said. But what about Raven? Not the title or the reputation, just you. What do you want? The question seemed to catch her off guard. For several heartbeats, she simply stared at him. Then, slowly, she reached up and removed her helmet, the first time James had seen her without it. Her features were strong and angular, her skin marked with ritualistic scars, but her eyes held something he hadn't expected: hope. I want, she said carefully, to believe that your way is possible, that there's more to existence than endless conflict. James reached out, hesitating before his hand found hers. Her skin was warm, her fingers longer and more powerful than his. Then help me prove it. Be the first to choose differently. Raven's grip tightened around his hand. If I do this, if I commit the Vakarine to peace, and it fails, my people will be destroyed. If you don't try, James countered, they'll never know if something better was possible. In that moment, something shifted between them. The war leader and the linguist, two beings from impossibly different worlds, found common ground in hope for a different future. Raven pulled him closer, her other hand cupping his face with surprising gentleness. You are either my salvation or my doom, James Cole. Maybe I'm both, he whispered. When their lips met, it felt like the entire galaxy held its breath. The most feared warrior in known space and a simple human scholar, bridging an impossible divide with trust and understanding. Months later, diplomats from both civilizations would gather. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting us with